After 10 years hurtling through space, a tiny spaceship is on target to land on the rugged terrain of a comet some 300 million miles from Earth. Let's bring in Harrison Ruiz, senior web producer for Sun News Network. And it's been a long journey, Harrison, hasn't it?
The journey through space for this one, as remarkable as it is, 10 years long. Actually, the planning for this mission goes back to approval being received in 1993, and the original concepts for this mission goes back to the 70s. So this is something that's been happening for a long time, and it's all set to culminate actually in the next minute or two. It's possible that we'll be receiving word from the European Space Agency's mission control across in Europe about whether or not Rosetta and its lander Philae has safely landed on Comet 67P, as you say, about 500 million kilometers away from Earth. And interesting, actually, the landing at this point has actually already happened or not. Hopefully it did work. But because of the distances involved, it actually takes 28 minutes for the radio signals traveling at the speed of light to get here from the probe that far away. The comet right now is actually between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter over on the other side of the solar system.
How cool is that? Any real concerns about whether or not this could go off without a hitch, given that I think that there were a couple of glitches overnight?
Yeah, there were a couple hiccups as they were ensuring that the spacecraft was ready to launch, or to separate, I should say. That's Philae needed to separate from Rosetta and then head down to the surface. But everything at this point seems like it's working well. They are on schedule. They had been predicting an 11 a.m. give or take touchdown period. The biggest risk at this point is that the gravity on the comet is quite weak. It's several 100,000 times weaker than here on Earth. So there's a possibility that the Philae lander could actually bounce off the surface, though it does have harpoons and screws on its feet to try to prevent that from happening. So it's going to get right down to the surface and then actually shoot harpoons into the surface of the comet to secure itself to the surface. And as I say, we should be moments away from finding out if this landing is successful.
And Harrison, you're playing it pretty cool, calm, and collected, but pretty exciting stuff, right?
I can step in, Karen, right now. Actually, I see hugging happening in mission control right now across in Europe, and so it appears that this has indeed successfully landed on the surface of a comet. There's
all right, here's
European...
the live shot. Yeah,
yep.
And there you go. There's the applause.
Fist in the air means that for the first time in history, humanity has landed human-built hardware on the surface of a comet.
That is pretty remarkable. So what happens next? I mean, now that they've crossed this huge hurdle, what do they do next besides obviously, say cheers?
The amazing thing is that Philae actually has to get to work on the surface almost immediately. Its primary batteries are only set to last for a couple days. It does have some solar panels that they hope will be able to charge secondary batteries, but whether or not those work correctly or not is an open question, depending on how much dust covers the solar panels and the rotation of a comet, if it does get direct sunlight to allow the recharging to happen. Comets are studied because they're time capsules from when the solar system formed 4.5 billion years ago. And so by understanding how comets formed, it helps to inform how the Earth formed, and perhaps how life first developed on Earth as well about 3 billion years ago.
That is pretty amazing. And I'll add that they are clapping and they're doing some high fives, but it's got to be pretty emotional too. They put a lot of sweat and tears into this one, so we'll continue to watch it. Harrison, really appreciate you joining us with your expertise.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay.